All right, here are the steps that we take when starting this show. First, we take the link and email it to my mother
What?
because
Okay.
she's like, "What's the link to join the show?"
Right.
This is usually when I get a message saying Zoom isn't working.
So I copy the link, and then I close that window, and then I send that to my mother.
You're a good son.
Yeah.
Click here to join. Send. Tonight's show. Okay. And then we see who's here. Yay, there are 10 people here.
Oh.
Yay. All right. Now we start the Facebook thingy. Hello, people that are here watching us start the show.
Hey, everyone.
Good evening.
We do this every week, and sometimes I remember to let people in early, and sometimes I don't, because whatever. Then we wait patiently for Facebook to catch up with us, which sometimes happens.
Facebook is the devil.
Well, you're an admin for like some large groups, right? And
Yeah.
I don't know how. I just think the software is terrible. The Facebook middleware is horrible. What are they doing? Don't they have like a huge programming staff?
I've probably sent out about 600 invites to like your page, and I'm thinking I might get 5% of those an immediate reaction, and some take up to a month.
Yeah. Okay, I'm ready to go.
All right, let's see. Live COVID-19 town hall number 22. It means I can't put any beer bongs on it this week because it's not a signature anniversary week. Okay. All right. Preparing to go live on Facebook. And I click here and here, here, and I click here. Then I click over here. Then I click here and here and here.
Oh, that's easy.
I did it. There we go.
No beer bong this week for Sanjay.
No.
Nope. All right. And then I click here, that, and hit this, and then click go live. And that changes to red, and I hit this, and we go.
Doesn't seem complicated at all.
Good evening, everyone, or afternoon, depending on your time zone here. This is John Daw here in northeastern Pennsylvania, coming to you live. We are here for our 22nd COVID-19 Town Hall, our weekly COVID cast live on Facebook and on Zoom. If you are participating on Facebook, feel free to jump over to the Zoom instead if you prefer. I will be posting the link in the Facebook Live chat window very shortly. Those of you who are joining us for the first time on Zoom, you can contact us or ask questions in the Q&A control panel. And Terry Munt will be assisting to monitor there, and also the chat on the Facebook page. But if you really want to get that question in, it is real time on the Zoom and about a minute delayed on the Facebook. So jump over to the Zoom using the link that will be posted very shortly. And we are, of course, joined by our host tonight, Dr. Sanjay Udoshi, live from Shavertown, Lehman area, Pennsylvania, just a couple miles that way. And how's everybody doing tonight?
Great, John. Thank you so much. Yes, week 22. And this week we will be focusing on basically what you've learned and trying to get an audience response on a number of questions that are related to our current status in addressing the pandemic, both at an individual level and also at a collective level as a nation. So I'd like to hear from you guys instead of presenting data like I usually do. We'll be asking some questions. Terry will also be joining and assisting in asking those questions and spurring on the discussion. I also want to make a brief announcement that we have 2 more of these town halls on our schedule. So at week 24, we will wind down this format and transition to something less frequent. And I don't know yet what that will be. But with the help of John and Terry, we are now discussing developing a podcast that will not be strictly focused on COVID. So we seem to have a strong response and following and circle of friends that are helping us disseminate our content and get the conversation out broadly. So we've also gotten a lot of feedback that the content that we have provided over the last 22 weeks has been useful and has been something that people have been pointing towards as a reliable source of information. We've done our very best to make sure that we stay as apolitical as possible. The ongoing town hall, however it will be produced and published, if not on a weekly basis, we'll try to remain apolitical and focused on the biomedical science around COVID, addressing COVID, staying safe, and all of those other issues. But we're now in a political season, and the election is shortly arriving. Thereafter, we believe that there will be a need for a renewal in interest in healthcare in the United States, something that has been largely absent for the last 4 years, advancing individual access to healthcare, improving the quality of healthcare, improving the responsiveness of public health, and doing so in a way that moves our country forward, as well as an example to the rest of the world, wherein we, as the most powerful and advanced country in the world, most wealthy as well, should be at the forefront of clinical sciences and care delivery. However, we are not. And we want to examine the issues around that. We also want to examine the politics, something that Terry and I are passionate about. We want to examine health policy impact, what kind of arguments are used in terms of the financial, socioeconomic, as well as the humanitarian. I think for too long, and what has laid bare is and exposed us, especially the fragility of our healthcare system, is this pandemic. And so I hope we get your support and your interest as we evolve the discussion beyond COVID and into broader areas of healthcare concerns, of societal concerns, of political concerns, and using this as a springboard for providing those conversations to everyone who's interested. Terry, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, one, COVID, I saw the comment, COVID is not going away. And I really expect that, and realistically, the second wave to be starting towards the end of the year, when the flu season is in full swing. I think you're going to see a real difference on what happens with the numbers. There's a whole lot of other topics that we don't get into on here. Like, we don't really get too political. In a different format might give us an opportunity where we can do that. Now, I've been accused of being political on here. I don't know how true that is or not. I have my moments, but I'd like to explore that in an area where I could, be less restricted.
No, I totally.
I'm a lot more fun when I'm less restricted.
I totally agree. We have a self-imposed restriction here because this does spread broadly beyond our circle of friends. And so what we committed to is to focus on the science and the public health without spin or bias, because we want to keep everybody healthy. Whether who you voted for doesn't really matter to what the outcome of these town halls should be. It should be that you take the best advice that we can gather for you, and you utilize it in your own life and the lives of your families and communities. So that means red states, blue states, green states, everybody, please just do your utmost to protect yourselves and each other. And that was the intent of these town halls, and we will do our best to continue to provide that. But as Terry said, that is self-imposed, and now we will take those impositions off and move into areas where we also find we can be impactful in advancing these conversations. And with the help of John, who is a long-time activist, and without whom we could not have done any of this. We will be continuing to ask for his help and seek his guidance on how to be impactful. So I think all of that is good news.
I think that to answer your question, Terry, about getting political, I think we've tried to stay as apolitical as possible, but there's a difference between political positioning and educating about public health. And I think that when elected leaders across the entire political spectrum aren't sure or aren't clear or aren't necessarily on top of the public health issues that they should be as elected leaders, you have to hold them accountable. And I think that we have done that through these broadcasts. And I think that we have educated people to have more informed conversations with their elected leaders around public health issues, especially the pandemic. I think that has been a huge service. I mean, we did the education show where we had elected people on the show. We had a school board member on the show, and I think it directly influences that. Sanjay and I have conversations with the Secretary of Health in Pennsylvania. We have conversations with people who are on the ground and dealing with elected officials and trying to educate them on public health. We're not necessarily educating people on public health that are a wide group of elected leaders, but we are educating the public and communities at large on how to have those conversations. So I think that, yes, do we skew a little political sometimes? I guess, but it also is having those conversations that, make more informed citizens have those conversations that then can get a little more political if they need to be. Oh, he's back. Hello.
Hey, yeah.
I was sitting there going like this to John, stretch it out. Stretch it out.
So I completely agree. And one of the things that we hope for in the future is to have, so I've been trying to get from my friend circle, people of expertise to join us. Like, we've had JJ, we brought Sharad in from the UK, and we have Dr. Nuthi on our group page. I'd like to see us discuss this now more broadly with non-experts. People who should be in contact with experts, but for whatever reasons are not. As John mentioned, it doesn't matter if that political figure is a D or an R or a G or an independent. We would love to have conversations with them. We would like to be in their ear. We would like to be able to say, look, this is what we've been doing. This is the evidence we've been gathering. These are the people that we've been getting the information from, and we want you to have it, and we want you to have a conversation with us about it. And so, I would love to talk to not just Dr. Levine, who's a a trusted figure in public health in Pennsylvania. I'd love to talk to people who have objections to these recommendations, who are in political positions, whether they be mayors here in Pennsylvania or representatives at the state level or the federal level. I'd love to talk to Lou Barletta. He's my representative, and let's see if we can foster these conversations. And because we don't have, this is a town hall. The whole point of it was town hall format. I don't know if we succeeded, but I'm trying again with this format tonight, which is I'm going to ask some questions, and I'm going to hope that we have people here attending that are willing to raise their hand and then be brought in as the panelist. So you can share your face and your thoughts with us on those questions, because I think that we have a lot of people that join us, especially on the Zoom and also on Facebook Live, that have strong opinions and that have informed opinions. Okay, so that has been made clear by on our pages, Mike Kidd with his statistics, and now most recently David Thomas with his experience in talking to the anti-vaxxers. We have Giselle from British Columbia that has joined us and brought in a person that was, remains kind of very averse to the thought of public health interference in the daily lives of small communities.
Oh, the wackadoodle guy.
The one that keeps, he was here. Remember, he talked to us live. Yeah. He was here when JJ first came.
Hat all the way.
Yeah. So, so I would love to we've got my questions, and I'd love to hear the views that you may hold, even if they're not in line with the ones that we've been trying to promulgate. So here we go.
And can I say two quick things?
Yes, please.
Before you go. Karen, who does a lot of work in her area regarding public health, one of her clients or person she works with is going to be appearing at the convention talking about their health problems. So she's going to be in a position of support for them tonight, and that's why she's not with us.
Got it.
Also, oleander is a poisonous, and I mean poisonous plant. It could kill a child, and byproducts of it are not good for you.
Correct.
So if that's your answer tonight, I may say something out of turn.
Okay, very good. Very good. So I know John's been tested. I know that Terry has been tested. I have not been tested. I have not been in a position where I put myself at risk. I have not traveled. I have not, come in contact with either pre-symptomatic or symptomatic COVID patients. So I just didn't avail of any tests. If there's anyone out there that would like to talk about what they think we should be doing with testing in terms of what they'd like to see in their community. Is there anyone out there that has tried to get a test recently and been told that they don't qualify? Anyone that wants to talk about testing at all?
I get another test tomorrow at 2:30, because I have to fly to Arizona, so I'm gonna get another test tomorrow.
Ooh.
So that should be fun. I'm interested to.
N95 mask for the flight?
I do.
Okay, excellent.
I did get one, but I am interested to see, because I go at 2:30 on tomorrow's Wednesday, so we'll see if I have it back by 2:30 on Friday. So.
Excellent. Are you getting it at Rite Aid again?
Yep.
Okay, great.
It's the only location in the county right now, so.
Okay.
That I can drive through. So.
Anyone else have a testing story that they want to talk to us about? Anyone with children who are back in school? And then we have a question from Chai, which is it too early to get a flu shot? No, it is not too early to get a flu shot. In fact, we're recommending that everyone get a flu shot that can. There's going to be a difficulty as we move forward in differentiating flu symptoms from early COVID symptoms, and the more broadly we can get everyone vaccinated for flu, the less likely we have that problem to deal with when patients present with flu-like symptoms, which are similar to early COVID symptoms.
On on Facebook, Grade, Grade from the page, Grade as Blue. They can talk about the testing experiences in Arizona. Now, I don't know if Grade can get onto the Zoom, which
this
would
is
make it
Gerda. This is Gerda. That's her pseudonym.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, it's
well,
Gerda
she's already in here. Go ahead, Gerda.
Yeah, can we bring her in?
I didn't know that was her secret Facebook account.
Yeah, that's her pseudonym. Hi, Gerda. Here we go. Here we go.
Can you see me?
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. I'm using that as a pseudonym because I'm a woman on the internet.
Okay.
I live in Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona. I have been tested twice. Once I had symptoms and my primary care physician wanted me tested. And the other time I just went and had myself tested because I was trying to experience what it was like to do a drive-in test, have a drive-in test experience. The first time was in early April, and I actually needed to get results back because I had conjunctivitis and a low-grade fever. But it took me 7 days, even working through my primary care physician, it took me 7 days to find a place that was going to test me. And then it took me 5 days to get the test results back.
Wow.
Now, I could stay at home all the time. I could self-isolate. It turned out I was negative. But that turned out to be the case for many folks in Arizona, that it became useless to go and get a test because the turnaround time ended up being up till 14 days. And then you sometimes had to wait a week to make an appointment to get a test. It is now better. So I actually went out and checked a drive-in, drive-through testing site about 10 days ago. And I made an appointment for midnight. My husband and I were the only people there. It was quick and easy. We got the results within 24 hours. Once again, negative. Now, the problem is that it's too late now. Most people in Arizona believe that the labs are not processing in time. They believe testing is no use because they will not get the results in time to submit to an employer. That it just doesn't matter because unless they're sick, they will not need treatment, and they're not going to wait hours at the drive-through for a test. So nobody, even though tests are now available, it's a bit like, oh, it's been screwed up already because it got screwed up with round one, and now nobody believes the tests have a quicker turnaround, and that gets mixed in with all the other conspiracies like pregnancy tests are counted with the COVID-19 tests and things like that.
Okay.
So,
yeah, we should address a couple of those crazy comments that I've seen and have been sent to me. One is that, well, let me start with where Gerda started, which is that a lot of people have lost faith in the turnaround time recently, especially in the last 2 weeks. So that's one of the reasons that they've avoided going testing. And that may have been one of the reasons we've seen a drop in the demand for testing of about 20 to 30%. But there's also a capacity loss in Texas that's unexplained. So, Terry, go ahead.
All right. So they're thinking now that a lot of the tests are going to people with actual symptoms. And since that happens, the positivity percentage has skyrocketed.
Okay.
So now they're playing with the numbers to bring that number down. And they're saying that they have better testing coming. So I'm holding my breath.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, that's not how you're supposed to run a. All right. Okay. Well, it's Texas, so what can I say?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that getting the 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 public health trust is so eroded right now. You know what I mean? Like the trust from the public, having seen that either when they show up for a test, it takes. I've gotten word that some people have waited 16 days to get a test result back, and then that we've had about a three week or 4 week span where testing turnaround time was skyrocketing, right? It should take no more than 48 hours. Terry and I and John have been stressing, if you're going to get tested, the first question you ask is, what's your turnaround time? What's your guaranteed turnaround time? And then when people show up and the person answering that question says, we don't have a guaranteed turnaround time, we've been getting them back anywhere between 4 and 8 days, then that person might just turn around and walk away and not get tested. Whether they're pre-symptomatic, asymptomatic, or symptomatic, if that's happening to them, then that's a real problem, and that's going to screw the numbers up, right? That's one aspect. The other aspect is the capacity for testing itself being diminished by whatever reasons, and so the ubiquity and speed of testing needs to be solved. What I mean by that is a test should be available at every drugstore. At every drugstore. I mean, at every urgent care center, at every doctor's office, anywhere you have a healthcare contact with healthcare at all, whether it be pharmacy or your doctor or urgent care or ER or major healthcare center, their ability to test you and give you a result rapidly, no more than 24 to 48 hours is the goal for between now and October. And Terry and I are going to talk about why October is important in a minute. So that goal must be set right now, and then after October, if we haven't done what's necessary, which is, and I anticipate we won't, but which is that 5-minute testing becomes available in more than 50% of cases.
The spit test is coming, so.
Yes, it is. And that's great news, which means that as we talked about almost a month ago now, when we had what was it, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago? I don't remember.
It was, we first talked about the Israeli spit test 2 months ago.
Yes.
So.
And then when we talked to the teachers, and we said that we need to have 5-minute tests available in schools. You buy as many boxes as you need for capacity, and the kids get tested every 4 days at minimum. Every kid gets tested every 4 days, and you do it in a cycle, right? You'd have group A through D or group A through G, and group A gets it done, and then 4 days later they get it done again, and then you cycle through all of your groups until you have that regular interval for all of the kids. And that's what's going to keep your schools and teachers safe. If you rush all of your kids into school scenarios, in-person teaching, whether they're second graders or whether they're college students, with none of them getting tested before they hit the campus door, you're going to see what's happening already now. Okay.
And let me say about what's happening already. One, the thing about the southern states and testing, that's just like Russia and China right now. Don't believe shit you hear out of the southern states. And another thing, we're talking about these schools that have opened and shut down again. These states, the majority of, are not keeping numbers for them. They're not being put in with the regular statistics they're announcing to the public. So there's a big gray area now where kids are involved, and it fucking pisses me off.
I know, and we're being told a bunch of lies about children. Children are not quote unquote almost immune. Children are capable of carrying and spreading the virus as efficiently as adults, especially those above the age of 10. I want to reiterate that. So if your children or anyone you know has children above the age of 10, they are as susceptible to carrying and spreading the virus as any adult. Okay. I have comments here from Madeline. Is there any way, Terry, do you know, have you been given the baton to be able to bring her in?
No, I don't.
John, co-host? No. Okay, so.
Oh, there he is.
Oh, there's Madeline. Excellent. Okay, so John is assisting. Madeline, can you go
Hi.
ahead? Hi,
Am
how
I
are you?
in?
Yes, you're in and we can hear you.
I'm
So,
good. Okay.
Can you please tell us your story. Go ahead.
Okay. I had to see my ophthalmologist. He's in a huge medical building. You have to go in elevators, through lots of halls, sit in many waiting rooms, etc. And afterwards, I wanted to have a COVID test because my daughter and my little granddaughter happened to be in my bubble. And I didn't want to have to wait 14 days. I checked online to find out where I could have it done. And the places I could have it done, I had to prove I had a symptom in order to have it done. And I could have lied, which I thought about doing and elected not to because I don't want things like that on a medical record. So I ordered one online from Vault Medical Services in New York. So day 4, I took the test, sent it back, and received the results within 32 hours. I was negative. So, yeah. So
Okay.
for $150, I was able to find out that, in fact, I didn't have COVID.
That's awful. That's awful.
Yeah.
What's
Worse than my antibody test.
Yeah, it is worse than your antibody test. What state are you in, Madeline?
I'm in Ohio.
Okay.
I live in Cincinnati. It's not a small city.
Yeah. Yeah. This is the other thing that kind of bothers me. If you have a pandemic that's literally affecting the economy, the entire gross domestic product dropped by 30% in the last quarter. For the entire country to regain its footing, these tests should be free, and they need to be available whenever you want them. You shouldn't be forced to pay for them. That's an exorbitant price, by the way. Costs, if you must pay for it, it costs about $18 in Germany and $12 in the UK. That's otherwise you'll have to queue and things like that, and then you get it for free. But anyway, I think there's just this absurdity. The more delay and the more barriers you have to testing, the slower this recovery is going to be. I just want to make that clear. Here's another incredible success story. Madeline mentioned the bubble, right? Her bubble. We talked about the bubble in week 3 in our town halls. So our bubbles are our closest contacts, our friends and family. The NBA decided for its season to survive, they needed to create a bubble around all of their teams. They're currently practicing, playing, and living in a bubble. Okay, and they're successfully able to go forward with their season. Now that means a huge sacrifice on the part of those players and their families and all of that, because they're literally quarantined inside of a scenario where they will only come in contact with people that are known negative. Imagine that, okay? They will not come in contact with unknowns, and they will not come in contact with asymptomatics. So their likelihood of contracting and transmitting is near zero. And that kind of safety scenario is possible at the community level, and coalescing bubbles that are all negative. Okay, so if Madeline wanted to come and visit me here in Pennsylvania, she just tested negative, and she could, I would make sure that everybody in my home is negative within the last 4 days. She can come and visit me and stay. You know what I mean? So that's not available to people right now. Madeline, Carol traveled from the West Coast. She said that her doctor had her use goggles, gloves, and an N95 while traveling on the plane. Her experience was that she flew from California to Rochester, New York, and she's now 7th day of quarantining. So she's fine. She's doing fine. The airports had sanitizer every 10 feet and were mostly empty. So that's good news. Pamela said that she was tested before her July 20th surgery. She was negative, and surgery proceeded. We're glad to hear that she's doing well and recovering well. But she was working overtime 7 days a week, and she's only going to doctor's appointments as she heals up. So, okay, so we know, all right? So we know what testing scenarios work: fast and ubiquitous. And we don't have fast, ubiquitous tests right now, and they cost money, and that's stupid. So that's just
you know, it's almost like someone wants to keep the numbers down. Now, I don't go for conspiracy theories, but
yeah, you know, right? Because if they're costly, then people won't go get them. If they're rare, then people won't go get them. And then, you know, if that's broadly the case throughout the country, then you won't have a correct representation of who's out there caring, and who's out there who's sick.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's true. I mean, I don't know that's what's going on. I really don't. There's no way to know that. But if you look at what's happening and you had to paint the picture with it, you know, it is what it is. Who says that?
Okay, so we're needing it. We have Rain Chamberlain. I don't know if you can help with this question, but it's fairly significant in local public health. I'm in Central California, where they have a very large homeless population, and they're in the middle of an extreme heat wave. This is a good question. They're doing rolling blackouts. People die from the heat every year, and COVID-19 has less capacity for cooling centers. The cooling centers have asked people with symptoms to stay home. So they have cooling centers, Terry.
Yeah.
My question is, if a grassroots effort is used to make cooling centers specifically for people who have tested positive but have low or no symptoms, like in a building that utilizes a swamp cooler and fans with open windows, is there a risk for people to infect others with different strains of COVID or make each other worse? That's a great question. Very, very good question. The likelihood for cross strain in the same geography is very low. So because this virus hops, you know, from person to person within a locality, the likelihood for that strain to be in that locality, same strain to be, is very, very high. I would say that if you are in an extremely high traffic urban place like New York City, there could be some, you know, strain to strain, different people coming in from Europe or Asia, and they come across each other, or they're carrying different strains and things like that. But when you have a geography where there's not a lot of people moving in and out of it, which it seems like, you know, it's not, there wouldn't be much of an issue there. Is that Rain? Yeah. Okay, let's bring her in.
You wanna? You're muted. Oh, there you go.
Okay, we do have a geography that has a lot of different travel, a lot of different everywhere from everybody from everywhere in the world comes through Fresno. It's kind of a huge deal here. We're a major farming area, but we're also a major metropolitan area, and we have thousands and thousands of people that are homeless, and we have constant in and out, and nobody has followed any COVID-19 procedures here because the politics that are in favor are claiming it's a hoax. I'm gonna leave my bitterness out of the conversation for the moment. But like, you walk onto the streets and nobody's done anything different. Nobody's wearing masks, etc. So there's like 18 public health concerns stacked in a trench coat here, and I am trying to figure out what to do, because we've got our homeless population always drops off by probably, it's hard to even know for sure how many, probably a couple hundred a year strictly from the heat, because they don't announce the deaths ever. I've been chronically homeless for years here. I'm not right now, but I have been in the past, and I have seen firsthand how much they erase. And so I'm trying to figure out if there's, so it's good to know that the cross strain is not very likely, but I don't know if the fact that they haven't limited travel. We always have constant travel from everywhere in the world, and they haven't done, there was like a month where they reduced it and then they opened it right back up.
Wow. So what do you propose as a solution? Because obviously I don't have enough information to, I can give you my opinion on something that you would propose. Go ahead.
So I'm thinking, if we make a cooling center that's just a voluntary cooling center, not anything that's mandated, not whatever, just a walk-in, walk-out cooling center, but that is specifically for people that have tested positive with low or no symptoms, to where they don't need to be hospitalized, but that way they're not introducing known COVID-19 into the cooling centers that are asking people to stay away, and using swamp coolers. And I saw some confusion at that term. That's I think it's called evaporative coolers,
Okay.
as opposed to air conditioners. So using swamp coolers and fans and open windows, that way there's more airflow instead of the air conditioner model. And places here, it's about half and half which places use which. So I
got a question for you, Rain. Do you have an idea what the percentage COVID positive is going through the tent cities? And I know they're numerous in California. And
we don't even get tent cities here, because they come in and they do sweeps constantly. We actually had one that just started up about a week ago, and so far it's been going strong, so it probably has another 2 weeks before it gets disbanded. We don't know how many are testing positive. We've had at least 1 or 2 homeless people test positive, and the fact that I know about that is significant, because homeless people are routinely kept out of all medical services here. If they enter the emergency room and are obviously like dying on the waiting room floor, the hospital staff will ignore them and tell security to escort them out. And that's routine. That's not even COVID-19 specific. That is every day here. And then they can't get medical care anywhere besides here. Being homeless, being evicted is a death sentence anyways. And the homeless community pretty much has to band together to sort of kind of hopefully survive, as many of us as possible, until we can get into a better situation, which is why grassroots is the only way this is going to change. So
yeah, so let me go to your suggestion. I would say that the use of those evaporative coolers might be dangerous, simply because the more vapor you have in that environment, the more likelihood of the evaporative, the aerosolized evaporative cooling to promote the spread between people. Okay.
Right.
And especially if you are, you have all of these people who are suspected or known positive, and someone's got to staff or clean that eventually, right? So
right.
Aerosolizing is a problem. That's one thing. The other thing is mask usage in cooling center is a must. So if you're going to have a cooling center, you better have free masks available for everybody that wants to avail of it. And that's the only thing. Now, does your county level public health, are they doing anything? Are they handing masks out? Are they making them available?
Not that I'm not on any scale that's wide enough to be of any good. They will occasionally have free mask distributions that you usually have to drive through, which means they're only available to people with cars. They probably happen about once every week or two, and I don't know how often they're county versus other places. It's not nearly the amount that it should be. But in general, at least in this month, lack of masks is not near so much an issue as lack of information that masks are needed, and belief in hoaxes that they're not. But yeah, so masks could be doable. And we could use AC and fans and whatnot and just leave the windows open. It just uses a lot more. So it's good to know that about the swamp cooler part.
Yeah.
So.
Well, there's a problem with swamp coolers too. Swamp coolers work by having an absorbent material on the backside with water running through it and a fan in front of it blowing that out into the atmosphere, usually a closed room. We use them at work. If you don't have adequate ventilation, you're going to be running into the same problem, I think, that you would with the evaporative coolers.
Yeah.
I mean, you're introducing a lot of moisture into the system, you know, and especially if it's an enclosed space. I don't see how that would be beneficial. I use it at work, but I also have a fan in the roof so that I can direct it up and out of the shop.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
It's the getting the air out into the greater environment is key, and reducing the amount of recycled water vapor. So
makes sense. Okay,
so I have two of our guys that I really want to bring in and have them.
Thank you.
You're welcome anytime. We'd like Brian and David, if they could join us for this next one, because we're going to move, because this is a good transition to the two questions that I can combine now, and that is, you know, what are your thoughts on a national mandate for masks? Okay, is it constitutional? I don't know, and all that other stuff. But if the federal government told the states that they should all enact a 3-month national, mandate, and that the federal government will send out, 3 billion masks or whatever, and the states will be responsible for handing out and making available free masks to everybody, that kind of thing. I'm just talking out loud. I want you guys to present your ideas. Why or why not? What kind of backlash would you anticipate? Because I know Brian, both of you have experience with backlash. And then, let's do that one first. And then the second one I want to ask you guys about is, do social media platforms have any responsibility to enhance public health beyond what they're already doing right now with their little, COVID thing? And how do they reduce disinformation while respecting free speech? Go.
All right, you want to go first?
I can. I'll tell you my thoughts on the mask. Okay, we already do things with seat belts. We already require people to use safety devices in given circumstances. So, constitutionally, I think they could probably argue this is a state-by-state thing, which doesn't help us. Unless all the states band together and do the same thing. I think that it would be a very good thing if they did do that, because then all this mass confusion stops. There would still be pushback, but if like we've said before, if we go through and get 80 to 85% of the people wearing masks consistently, that is a massive improvement. If we could somehow get to that point through a national mask mandate, I think that would be super beneficial. I'll let Dave.
Yeah, Dave, you want to chime in? David?
Sure.
By the way, do you prefer being called David or Dave, just so we're respectful?
Whatever comes off the tip of the tongue, honestly.
Okay.
Dave, fine. David, either way.
All right,
so I would leave out legal speculation. That's not really something that I know about, but I can say that and even since we last talked, I had the question for JJ about the ethics of This was about vaccination, but masks are certainly far less intrusive. And if you remember the sliding scale that he had, or the block was, low risk, high benefit. And so this certainly, I mean, if it comes down to people saying like, oh, I have an allergic reaction, if we, like he said, like Brian said, if we can get to 85%, that's a huge win. But I don't know if Jacobson applies nationally or if it really is a state right. So that might be one thing right there. I can say that it has been used for many more things other than vaccination, in other public healthcare settings. So I don't see why it couldn't be used for that. I would suggest a future guest, Dorrit Rubenstein-Reese. She's a professor of law at UC Hastings, and she specifically deals with vaccine mandates and is advisory to Department of the CDC that helps come up with the childhood immunization schedule. So I think if you wanted a legal answer, that would be for her. In terms of what I've seen, I think you're going to get pushback no matter what you do. I don't think the question is, will there be pushback? I don't know if that can be the metric you use, because anything you do, there's going to be pushback. I mean, I don't want to say I didn't expect it, knowing the anti-mask league of 1918 pandemic influenza. So I can't say I was surprised by that. So I think you're going to get pushback. And the metric I would recommend is this. Let's say it's constitutional to do a mask mandate. Will it cost more, knowing the legal challenges will come and you have a finite amount of money to spend? Will it cost more to do that? And will you get a better result than other ways of either incentivizing it? I know that there's a big debate in the vaccine community whether school mandates are worth it, or do we do something where a more libertarian view, even if you want to put it that way, where it is an incentive and somehow to vaccinate, and then some form of liability if you get sick and get someone else sick. That's not necessarily my preferred way, but I would say that if you look at it from that perspective, you're going to get pushback no matter what you do, just because someone's telling you to do something. And then the question would be, what would be the cost and benefit on that, knowing that almost anything you do, I don't know if there's really a way to challenge a tax incentive to encourage good behavior. And I don't know how easy it would be to change liability on that. But if you wanted that question, Dorrit would be fantastic for that. She is an epic science communicator, writes for Skeptical Raptor. She recently took over running the page We Love GMOs and Vaccines. She's awesome.
Yeah, we'd love to talk to her. We would love to have her on. Let me know how we can get in touch with her, and we'll talk to her.
One thing I'd also like to add to that with the incentives is ticketing. So if you look at Australia, you look at some of these places that are going into ticketing modes where they ticket people for violations. You make it well known that this is a mandate, this is a national mandate or a state mandate, and it has legal enforcement. And, there was an article I read not too long ago. A woman did a public birthday party, and the authorities showed up, and she was charged 18,000 Australian dollars for the amount of violations at the birthday party. Guess what? They don't have any problems with birthday parties anymore. Now, that could lead to legal problems, where you're suing left and right and whatnot. However, that takes a lot of time. If someone understands that they're going to get charged the amount of a vehicle to violate all of these rules, it suddenly becomes very, very discouraging. And people start to pay attention to what their plans are. Not only wearing a mask, but not taking the activity that they planned on having maskless.
That's an outstanding observation and comment. So my fear is, and it's balanced by my observation. I'll talk about my observation and then my fear. My observation here in Pennsylvania, in my community, is 99% in my community. I'm talking about right here, okay? In my grocery store, gas stations, wherever I go for whatever my needs are. I haven't seen a non-mask wearer in months, okay? And I haven't seen or heard of anyone on the news locally that has made a stink about it or thrown a fit about it or created a scene about it in our community. Okay. So here, northeastern Pennsylvania, like I said, somewhat of a right of center, but we used to be a blue state that trended red during the last election. And unfortunately, masks are a symbol of what political party you belong to right now. If you wear one, it says something. If you don't wear one, it says something, which is super, super unfortunate. But so that's my observation. You will have some communities like ours that for whom it's not a problem. That you don't need to use a fine. You don't need to use a legal stick to get people motivated to do these things in their own benefit and for the benefit of their own family and communities. And then there's the fear is those in other areas, like I've been observing in Georgia most recently, and a lot of comments and people telling me things that are going on in Georgia over the last 2 weeks. It's asinine. I mean, the things that parents have said about their own children's health and safety. Well, I'm not going to make them wear a mask because it's their body, their choice, or things like that when they're high schoolers.
What was that abortion argument again?
Yeah, same thing. My body.
Okay, just wondering, curious about that.
But now that brings me to the point of the business case. So of the observations that I've seen, that this has been highly politicized, the use of a mask in public has been highly politicized. In those communities where these politics are not core driving beliefs for a person's behavior like mine, okay? So we have Trump supporters wearing masks. We have Biden supporters wearing masks in my community. They're all shopping next to each other and they're fine. Everybody's getting along. Things are going well here. And we have extremely low case positivity and all that. All good here. The business case is that our shops are open. Our restaurants are open. Our schools are safe. Our kids are going back to school with a measure of caution and all that other stuff. Whereas in communities where it's politicized, there's hell to pay. Okay, that's one. Then that's the overall. Here's something that hits home with a lot of people. There's no football.
Yeah.
That apparently is a business case to a lot of people. Okay,
Absolutely.
There's no football this year.
It's huge.
It's
Ohio State. It's huge that they're not playing.
Yeah.
What you're not talking about is forget about what the owners make and the players make. Think about what Las Vegas makes.
Yeah, it's a huge business case.
Yeah,
huge business case.
One thing I want to talk about. So you have that cohesion in your area, Sanjay. Here, it is quite a lot of people. If you go out to the stores, gas stations, quite a lot of people are masked. However, we recently have, and I can send you the link to this lady's site. We have a new thing in Ohio. It seems to be more Columbus and Cleveland. She's from Cleveland, but I've heard of it in Columbus as well, where maskless individuals that want to promote anti-mask go to businesses that are mask required, and they hang out and they cause disturbances, they argue, they specifically go from masked area to masked area, and they just cause widespread
disruption, yeah.
Arguments, disruptions, whatever. They actually, pin down the employees, and it's absolutely ridiculous.
It is ridiculous, and we have a problem here because, and the comments come from Terry, from our friend John Davies, that would you prefer to live in a techno-fascist, public health oppressive society that mandates all of these things, regardless of the level of risk in that community? So if you're in a small town in British Columbia, if you're a small town in Nebraska, and people are handing out tickets, you know where I'm going with this, David? People are handing out tickets for not wearing a mask when there's next to no threat, because it just came as a federal national mandate. What kind of disdain are we going to be stirring up?
I think you can build those ticketings into the state levels. So it seems every state, or most every state around me, has gone to like a 4-level warning system.
Yes.
So there's level 1, which is everything's green, good to go. Level 2 is yellow, a little bit higher spread. 3, 4. You get into a 3 and 4, you kick those tickets in. You kick in the disincentives and go with that type of a setup.
The problem we've seen with one area being one level and the next area being a lower level is the travel in between levels.
Yeah.
It's happened state to state. It's happened county to county, township to township.
Good point.
It does not work. You might see a minimal drop in numbers initially, but once traffic starts moving across that imaginary line, it defeats the purpose of doing that.
A good example of that, Terry, is where I'm at. I'm in Franklin County, and Delaware County is where my daughter goes to school. Delaware County has no major hospitals on the southern border. So and that's where a lot of their population is. So anybody that gets sick goes right into Franklin. Now, I don't know how they report those cases. So if someone tests positive in Franklin, is it a Franklin case or is it a Delaware case based on address? There's a lot of interesting play with that population.
Okay, I have a suggestion, John. Since we have 10 attendees, whoever wants to join for these next three questions and kind of free form like we used to in the previous format, probably useful instead of waiting until the post show, because we have David and Brian contributing. We'd like to have the others that have come to the town hall also, Don, Karen, Jenny, others.
There was interesting comments in the chat from Catherine Wilson. She said, I worked with Chinese clients from Shanghai during the Chinese New Year's. One of them fell ill. I tracked my symptoms and became ill 6 days later. At the time in late January, there were no tests where I lived. I stayed home. The follow-up with an antibody test in mid-May, which came out negative. We now have both tests available with results a few days. So that's pretty close call, and she quarantined, and she had direct contact.
I had a student who was ill, but he was from China, and he didn't know what he had because he was out of his own country. So he didn't. I'm a ski instructor. Okay, I ski on Vail Mountain, and we have plenty of people from all different countries. So over the New Year's or Chinese New Year's, we had, an inordinate amount of Chinese vacationers coming to ski. Also socializing at night and doing things like that. Right now, we also have lots of out-of-town visitors that are coming up from Texas, Arizona, hot states like that, to escape the heat. And they don't like to wear masks. In our town, it's basically suggested you wear a mask when you go indoors or required, but there's no fines. There's this town nearby, Aspen, which is more liberal than our town and has fines. So in Aspen, if you are not wearing a mask in town, not just indoors, but in town, you receive a $50 fine. And on your second offense or more, you receive a $250 fine.
There you go.
Wow. Okay.
Then we are now trying to figure out what to do for a winter season here. And for the winter season, we will most likely have visitors from Mexico, but probably not other countries. We're kind of basing what happens here. Our company owns a lot of ski areas all over the world, including in the Southern Hemisphere. So in the Southern Hemisphere, ski areas have been opening late, closing, opening again, closing. Our locals tend to wear masks here in town. The visitors tend to object to them.
Wow.
We're supposed to wear masks on hiking trails when we pass somebody. So if you're running or biking or you're on your own, fine. But if you are going to be passing somebody, you look ahead, you pull a mask up. The locals do that. The visitors do not do that. The visitors are the ones, we've had 2 spikes basically. One early on, we were an epicenter for Colorado. We were kind of shut down all the ski areas because of what was going on in our ski area. And then we had another one shortly after July 4th.
Well, this is the thing, Catherine, that makes me feel like a national mask mandate takes the onus off of the localities and the states even, and says, look, we're doing this nationally. You don't have an objection. If you want to be here in this country, this is what we're doing, you know, and this is the recommendation for the next 3 months, and then we're going to reassess whether we need to keep it in place. Because that's just
Well, people get rude. They're rude to each other.
Yeah, that's
you know,
all.
you have somebody who's not wearing a mask who told me this morning when I was taking over my, recycled things. She goes, "You're killing me wearing that mask." And I said, "No, I'm not. You're killing me not wearing the mask."
Right.
And so people end up there kind of fights as people cross each other on hiking trails and things. I mean, it's kind of silly now for the mountain. That's owned by the company. It's on national federal forest land, but the company runs it. So they could mandate that you have to wear them. This winter, we will probably have outdoor toilets rather than indoor. The buildings will be closed. The restaurants will be closed. However, they'll probably have like outdoor kiosks where you get a hot chocolate or a espresso, something like that.
Wow.
So
I'm living a parallel life at Squaw Valley in California. Tahoe is, I mean, it's like, in some ways it's good to hear that other people are living this too, because sometimes it's shocking, the visitors versus the locals. In fact, we had 4 protests around the lake this past weekend because of visitor behavior. We've got it locked down. We're in it together. We're Tahoe, but they are not.
Yeah.
I have a sick fantasy where someone comes up and tries to pull my mask off. Is there something wrong with me? I mean, because I've mapped it out.
Yes, many things. There are many things.
Good diagnosis, Dr. Daw.
We also have one element here, which is even though we're kind of a ski town and all of that, part of the state, part of the county I'm in is also ranching land. And so there are a lot of ranchers who are pretty isolated, right? But so there's a lot of resistance when they come into some of the larger towns to wear masks or to even think about it being a problem, because the tourist towns are the ones that have the problems.
Yeah, I see that. Even here in the East, we have that problem. The tourist towns are the ones facing people who are coming in without the same, sense of community. They're just there to have a good time and leave. And that's been a real issue for them to get them to comply, which is awful, because these communities are opening their doors for you to come in and spend your vacation with them, and you're being obnoxious. It's just awful. It's like coming into somebody's house as a house guest and just being a filthy slob, and it's awful.
And then there's economic part of that equation too, which is that we actually need them to come in to survive.
Yeah. Okay, so I think I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to put it out there, and we're going to have David, because I
Sure.
think we'll have a good perspective on this. Do you feel, now we're 6 months in, this is in the next 2 weeks, we will have been doing this as a town hall to address these things for 6 months. Do you feel oppressed by this pandemic? Or do you feel more angry about the non-compliance that's prolonging it?
For me, it's the non-compliance.
I don't know if I would use oppressed. I feel like me personally, I'm probably the last person who's been oppressed in anything in my life. So that's the wrong word for me. Um, Anger, I had that for a long time. Um, I guess maybe you go through the whole thing, right? Denial, acceptance. I guess that's where I'm at now. For me, I don't think I'm going to win anyone over if I'm the angry leftist and, some elitist East Coaster. So coming from the second someone hears I'm from Massachusetts, if I tell them what we're doing here and they're from another state, the conversation's ended. But it's interesting here. We do have a mandatory masking policy. It is a $300 fine. If you walked around in certain areas, you would not know that. It actually surprises me, the non-compliance that I'm seeing. And so that was something I just thought of. You were saying a federal one. Who would enforce that? And will we provide funds for an enforcement action? But do I feel oppressed? No. I don't also feel surprised because I was reading a lot about the 1918 pandemic influenza response before all of this. And there was such strong resistance, and that led to political ramifications too. So my fears are more that I don't want to say we have to strike a balance, but if you look at, I can't remember the name of it, the A1 party in Italy won and got in a number of politicians over the vaccine issue, and they were quite literally xenophobic, fascistic.
Yeah.
So you see this tendency of people coalescing around the far right. And so I wonder, do we just give them fuel to the fire, and what are unintended downstream effects? So I think that extreme caution is needed. And I just hope that these rapid tests are online soon and have a high enough sensitivity that we're capturing everything. Yeah. So oppressed, no. Angry, I can't live like that though.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Thank you for giving us your perspective, because that was really quite good. This will then now kind of segue into this last question, which is, we've done our best to try and educate. I don't feel like our news media has done that. I think, and this will segue back to something that Gerda asked to comment about, which is there a profit motive that is prolonging the pandemic? Okay. What I mean by that is, so we had the Oleander guy on Anderson Cooper, and it was mind-blowing. It was a magnificent display of it, but it was entertainment. Even for me, it was entertainment, right? I don't know for whom it was not entertainment. You know what I mean? There was no information relay there. There was no, what is it? What is the compound? Where did it come from? What were the studies? Where has it been used before? It was just Anderson pounding on this guy's face saying, you're a nightmare. You should not be here, but I need to pull you out of the toilet and show people just what a nightmare you are. And I know that that's going to help my ratings. So that's
10 minutes.
Yeah. No, it was longer.
Uninterrupted minutes he was on.
I know. So
it's longer than that, because if you look online, they cut the beginning of it
right.
off, and it's probably like 12, 15 minutes.
Exactly. So this is happening in right-wing media too, in terms of promulgating this whole sense of oppression and sense of overreaction about this being not a hoax, but we're now overreacting to it. And this is our overreaction is damaging our economy, our children, our everything, our society. So it takes and talks back and forth based on where you are on the political spectrum, the reasons for being upset and angry. And I think that the media is feeding on that. They are feeding it. they're profiting from it as well. And I think there is a certain amplification of the distrust that they have created, rather than, and no one else has created it. It's Fauci hasn't created distrust or animosity by the things that he said. If you take them absolutely word for word and in a vacuum outside of the politics, and so many others, even Redfield, the hapless guy at the CDC, if you just take him in a vacuum and you take things away from the fact that he's a Trump appointee and all this other stuff, Admiral Giroir, all these other guys that have been the face of the public health response, Deborah Birx, if you just listen to them without the commentary that comes before or after their statements, whether it be on CNN, MSNBC, or Fox, right? The message itself is valid, but the way that these news media are using the is to benefit their own motives, which is sensationalism and ratings. And I think that has done a lot of damage, but I want to open it to your opinions. Anyone can comment.
I would say that going back since they overturned the fairness, the fairness doctrine that they had, and corporations moved in and bought out all the news medias. I mean, 6 corporations own all of our media. So you look at a TV show, whether it's right bent, left bent, okay, they churn it and churn it and churn it, okay? The higher the ratings, the more they can charge for that 30-second commercial. They don't give a shit who they hurt, it's get them ratings up, get them riled up, you know what I mean? They're going to be back tomorrow. They want to see more of the same shit.
Yeah.
That's American media. I don't watch news anymore on television because it makes me sick to my stomach.
Media's always been that way. I remember my grandmother saying sensationalism sells newspapers. That's always how they got people hooked. And so I don't see how that's going to change, actually, whether it's a big corporation or a smaller company.
Oh, I think there's a huge difference between the editorial page of your local newspaper and the carefully scripted, not even news shows anymore. It's all opinion, and it's all driven to one, split us as a people.
But the idea of sensationalism, like when I was growing up, I was in Chicago, and the Chicago Tribune, I just didn't even want to read it because, it was all about women getting raped and murdered. And, I just felt like if I read this every day, I'm not even going to want to get to school.
What part of Chicago are you from?
I'm from around Wrigley Field.
Oh, okay. I was born right over by there.
I moved up to Rogers Park later, but
yeah, I lived there.
And then, so I started reading the Wall Street Journal because it didn't have the sensationalism in it, all the fear mongering.
Does now.
Well, it was a long time ago, but I could get them free on people would leave them on the train, so I could read them.
The Murdochs bought the Wall Street Journal, and that was the end of it.
Yeah, well, that was a different era too.
So these are my concerns right now: testing, ubiquity, and speed. And does anyone have a prediction as to when and what normalcy will look like? How's that for a question?
You're looking at it. You're looking at the new normal, and
yeah, I don't like it at all.
This is closer to what it will be than it was.
I think it's time to talk about October.
Yeah.
One thing, Sanjay, before we start, so my daughter's school is looking to kick in here in about 2 weeks, and they're going hybrid model. But up until August 2nd, you had until August 2nd to decide to go either offline and do the distance learning or go to hybrid. So the school's been slow. After August 2nd, the school system started to release information about how the school year is going to be set up. The teachers that I'm talking to, they're looking to have the kids that are bussed in get off the bus, and one kid at a time needs to reach their classroom before the next kid can get off the bus. So they're talking about 40 minutes to get kids off the buses for a half day of school, and then put them on the buses in the same way. It's mind-boggling, like the type of things that they have going on in some of these schools.
Will there be a polycarbonate course they have to run through? With maybe jump over a pit and climb a rope bridge and.
This is ridiculous.
Not only that, so the school has a certain number of bathrooms. They've shut half of them down because they don't want to have to clean them. So it's 3 kids can use the bathroom at a time, with 50% of the kids in the school. So everybody that has signed up for hybrid now wants to go distance, but they won't let them. So they're going to get shut down within like the first 2 weeks.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's going to be a disaster. And I only know about the middle school. I don't know what the heck they're doing in elementary and high school.
I made a comment the other day that these plans were made up by the best minds in the room, except the room was a fucking broom closet.
You are absolutely right. I have sent email after email. I've called the school board. I've called the Ohio Department of Health asking, where do these kids get tests? And they're like, they're supposed to just go to their doctor. So the advice is always, they just go to their primary care physician. I'm like, that's not going to work. The primary care is not set up to run hundreds and hundreds of these tests.
And if you ask, we had Karen Padden from Scranton, a teacher from high school, Scranton School District. Yep. You ask her what percentage of her kids have regular visits or even have a primary care doctor.
Yeah,
it's low. Now where my daughter goes to school, it's probably super high. But regardless, if they have a breakout and 400 kids get exposed, they're likely all going to the same primary care physicians. So you've got this massive, these doctors are not going to be prepared for this, And I asked the Ohio Department of Health, have they contacted these physicians telling them that this is the way that they're advising? And they said no. So it's all just gonna crumble into a really bad state very quickly. It's my prediction. So you asked about the new normal, where things are going.
Yeah.
I think school's gonna tremendously complicate things here very, very quickly, as we saw in Georgia.
If I could add, and I said it earlier, and I want to say it again because you're talking about schools. They are not tracking the cases in schools.
Right.
They are not, the majority of the states are not tracking the cases of the teachers, the students, the friggin' janitor. That's not going into any database. They're not included in any number. So you hear about all these schools that open and close and they have 80 positives. All right. That's not represented on paper anywhere.
Right. So, I keep referring to a gentleman named Mike Kidd. He's a friend of ours on Facebook and a friend of our activities on the resource page. I keep sharing his statistical analysis because it's been spot on and extraordinarily detailed. And someone referred me back to a previous post of his where he talked about seasonal variation. I think this is where Terry's going with this, about, we have a flu season impending now. It tends to start up right about September and accelerates. And the fact that initial understanding of COVID virus, just the viral behavior as a biological unit, is that it's a bit fragile in outside of the body, right? So if it's sitting on a surface that is at ambient room temperature. It's about 3 to 6 hours before it breaks down into a form where it can no longer be infectious. And that's without disinfection, and that's without any other chemical agents being used. In aerosolized form, it has a longer preservation. So it can last about 12 hours as hanging out in the water vapor in the air, up to 16 or 17 hours. I think some of the tests that showed that. And heat. So heat and sunlight actually are powerful disinfectants. All bacteria, viruses, and infectious agents. And in the summer months, in the environments where people have been spending a lot of their time outdoors, etc., the transmission rates have been lower, especially in the non-hotspot states. So if you look at the Northeast right now, New York State, Massachusetts, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, where people have been spending a lot of time outside, there haven't been spikes of outbreak like there were in the South. Now, the South has much, much higher temperatures than the Northeast in the summer. So what does that mean? Mike was opining that it perhaps means that the summer months are actually a lull in transmission, and that once people head back indoors and subject themselves to air-conditioned environments that you see where the Southerners are taking, respite from the heat down south, when we have more people throughout the country in indoor environments with recirculated air, which is what happens in the winter, that the transmission rates are actually going to spike throughout the country, or could spike throughout the country. The summer is actually a lull in COVID. If you look at when this started, it started in March. It was colder throughout the country in March and April, and then started to warm up. We saw the transmission rates come down until the bars reopened in the middle of June, and people headed in to bars and gatherings that are indoors, and that's where the majority of transmission occurred. If people get bored in this upcoming winter months, what are they going to do? They're going to congregate indoors in recirculated air and in larger numbers, and that may contribute to one of the things that Terry's raising as a potential problem towards the end of October, which is a resurgence to above the current outbreak that we've already seen. So what are your thoughts there? Terry, did you want to add something, or did I hit the
Yeah, we're due a second wave. And if what we've gotten in the last 8 months is a lull, okay, the second wave, we were talking about the possibility of 300,000 dead by Christmas. But if this has been a lull, that number is going to get real scary. I mean, we're only 2 months away from seeing what this thing's really capable of churning out. And if it's as bad as some think, and I'm one of those some, we could be looking at a hardcore second wave hitting this country.
Yeah, especially because at that time, schools are not going to be able to hold as much of their, I mean, I've heard the suggestion that schools that are going to be in person try to hold as many of their classes outdoors as possible, utilize outdoor spaces, utilize tents, utilize whatever. Okay, fine. For what? The first 6 weeks of school that are meeting in person, and that's not going to be for every kid, all the kids' classes. But then you are going to be driven inside throughout the entire northern tier of the country from October onwards through March. Everybody's going to be indoors because the weather sucks up here. And that's going to lead to, your population is going to live indoors for the next few months. And unless we have control over this by the end of October, I would have to agree with a lot of epidemiologists. I would have to agree with Mike and Terry, who have looked at these numbers and are warning us that we don't have very long to mitigate before we're hit by a second wave. Anyone have opinions on that?
I just want to reiterate, I'm completely on board with your analysis there. You know, I really think once we get back to school, and once the temperatures start to go a little bit south, you know, for us Northerners, it's going to be pretty bad. You know, all these positivity rates are going to spike all over the place.
Anyone else?
My work's already starting to prepare to go back to more work from home. So we're in the process of facing that now. Massachusetts, I can't remember what our positivity rate is right now, but I can tell you where I work at the city of Cambridge, we've had about 1,200 cases overall confirmed positives. There's 990 recovered, yeah. And 99 confirmed deaths. So right now that's about 250 active cases that we know about. And that we seem to be holding steady at about those number of cases. And I would assume, but the good thing is that at least here in this state, somehow, even with, Democratic legislature, Republican governor, there's been virtually no disagreement in the need for action. And the other thing is, early on in the outbreak, a lot of life science companies around here pitched in and donated their PPE, donated reagents. So I think that was specifically a Massachusetts and specifically Boston phenomenon that we were very fortunate to have here, as well as a high level of established hospitals and medical teaching systems and just the staff to do it here. But I think we're not in a bubble. You know, we don't have a magical shield around Massachusetts. So, so goes the rest of the nation, so goes us. And, I sometimes do Airbnb, and we've had to shut it down because I keep getting people like, I'm flying in from Germany. And I'm like, well, are you prepared to stay in my house for 2 weeks? Yeah. In a separate, it's a separate part of the house. Like, are you prepared to stay in my house? Are you getting a test? And, oh, I don't have to do that. So I felt like it was unethical to like even operate this. I kept getting requests. So I'm making changes. I know I've pushed against some friends who initially weren't taking it seriously, but I can tell you it sounds like both from, I work for a company called Smart Labs, and we manage research facilities. So if you're a company like Q Biopharma or Prime, and you're going to be doing gene editing, right? We operate the labs, we hold the permits, we run the facilities for you, and you come in and you do science. We also have offices and other things like that. But the benefit is that all of the people who are coming from the lab operations side of things were at one point scientists working in the field. So if they're saying, hey, we need to get ready and it's probably going to happen, and it's probably going to happen soon, like after Labor Day, and people are going to go out, what's going to happen 2 weeks after that? We think we know. So what can we do is just try to impress people in our small sphere of friends. Sorry if I was looking down and I missed the question. I was talking to Dorit just now. She just went back to teaching just today, and Tuesdays are unfortunately her loaded day. Okay. With 2 kids and going back to teaching at UC Hastings, Tuesday is probably a no-go, but if I know her, she'll find some way. So at some point, when her schedule,
we can accommodate her on another time too. We'll try to do that as long as Terry is available and John can help out. Even you could be one of our key panelists, and we'll try to get her on a night.
Absolutely. And afterwards in the chat I'll have more questions about that too.
Okay, great. So I'm going to try to shift us back to the last topic here, which is Gerda had a question about, she wants to make some remarks on the profit motive right now in healthcare and testing. Then we can discuss that further. Gerda, are you there? Yeah, there she is. Do we unmute her? Gerda, we can't hear you.
She can unmute herself now.
Oh, she can. Okay. No, we can't hear her. Let me see if I can.
There
we go.
I'm muted. Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, this comes back to testing and incentives. Part of what happened in Arizona with CARES money is that it was given out to labs, commercial labs, to perform testing. And they were told to just do as much testing as possible, which they did. They collected a lot of samples. But then there was a complete breakdown. And in fact, in one lab, there was a literal breakdown of a machine. And the other lab ran out of reagents. And because the one was an Abbott machine and the other one was a Bruce or something machine, the two labs couldn't even help each other because they had incompatible. So anyway, the turnaround time though was, as I said earlier, about 14 days eventually. Now, this to me, these companies really went for the opportunity to get the CARES monies from our governor. And the only directive they were given was to test as many folks as possible. Right. And I just think that's a recipe for disaster, because unless you also require a turnaround time, then hey, these people, why not take the money and test everybody? It's not your problem if the test results don't get back in time to be clinically and epidemiologically actionable.
Right.
So I don't know how we get, I feel in Arizona, we cannot get our state government to mandate something like we'll give you this money if you can do a 24-hour turnaround, because that's the government involving itself in, all that stuff. Right. So I don't know what we can do in our system, our medical industrial complex, that is so geared towards competition. A pandemic needs collaboration and coordination.
Yeah, we're not beautiful. That's a beautiful observation. Excellent observation. We're not set up. This healthcare system is not set up for collaboration at all. So one of the things that I urged us to consider, and we did a lot of it here in Pennsylvania, was to hand over as much as we can, as money of our resources and in terms of financial and material as we can to our universities in this time, instead of just handing dollars to the commercial labs to scale up, because the universities, especially Penn State, UPMC, here in Pennsylvania, Jefferson, Penn, others, we have huge lab capacity, huge. They're all running different things, but they could all be retooled and retasked to do testing, and we did to a great degree for their hospital settings. And their goal was performance, right? It wasn't anything else. There wasn't a profit motive there. It was to perform as many tests as accurately as possible, and that in a pandemic should be the goal. But our healthcare system is, like you said, one major monolithic lab corporation is married to one testing system from one huge corporation, and then the other one is married to another testing system from another huge corporation. And
doesn't that sound just like the vaccine problem we're going to have?
Yes, it is. It is going to be.
Now, here's another interesting story. I mean, veterinary labs perform RT-PCR tests all the time because animals are riddled with coronaviruses.
Yes.
And I have always wondered why those labs, the vet labs, could not be converted to help with human testing. I spoke with my veterinarian about it, and he told me that a friend of his works in one of the big vet labs in our state, and has tried to approach our governor for months and months. I said, hey, we can do it. We have capacity. We know how to do the test.
it's just a different reagent than what we use for animals.
Yes.
And that there's just no interest whatsoever. And what my vet wanted to know, well, is it because our vet labs are not hooked into the gravy train? Is it, what?
Yeah.
We offer to do this, and we're not even asking for profit. But no, there's just science.
So I think what we'll see transition to now is we're going to probably leave individual PCR testing behind, and we're going to have to scale up the rapid antigen testing, which is a point of care 5-minute, strip test that we talked about. And so even the era, if you want to even call it 3 months or 4 months of testing an era, that era of PCR nasal swab testing is actually going to go away very soon. Mm-hmm. So it was to immediately address how to tell whether somebody is carrying the virus or not. And all of these delays that we've seen recently of it taking greater than 4 to 8 to 16 days is now going to go away in favor of, we're going to have to scale up and produce 3 billion tests just for this country, by the way. Just for this country, we need 3 billion of these rapid antigen tests. And you're going to ask me, why do you need, there's only 300 million people. No, you need 3 billion. Yeah, exactly. Because you're going to cycle through them so quickly. You're going to have kids that are going to need to be tested every week or every 4 days. You're going to have doctors and nurses that need to be tested every 2 to 3 days. The more that you have and the more rapid it is and the more often you can test, the faster you can control the pandemic. So that's where we are. So PCR and all that capacity that we have built up, we'll have to just put dust covers on it until the next pandemic shows up. But that's the reality. That's where we are. Anyone else want to comment? Because I'm done with questions. Anyone have questions for anyone else?
I just have a question
Yes.
on the system that our town is using for the town buses and also for the private school, which is a dry hydrogen peroxide system that they're installing into the ventilation system of both the buses and the schools. And I don't know if there's any value in it or if it is just like a sort of sense of security or false security for people.
Yeah, it's just like a UV system. There's no guarantee that the dose that is delivered to the biological agent is adequate to deactivate it. So hydrogen peroxide is actually naturally produced by our white blood cells. And people don't know that it's actually one of these chemical warfare agents that our white blood cells produce and then release onto bacteria and viruses. So it is a powerful antimicrobial, but you will never be able to guarantee that in a certain space in which air is flowing, that the microbial agent will be exposed to an adequate concentration for an adequate duration to be fully inactivated. The same is true for the amount of UV that you can put through that same space. So the most efficient way to filter or defeat bacteria viruses is to superheat them or to high efficiency particulate filters. So, and even those you can't use in a public space because they have to be swapped out so often to remain efficient.
Sanjay, one thing, so my company recently, so they have a call center. Call centers come down with cases of COVID, they shut it down.
Yeah.
One of the things they're doing to sanitize the building is they come in with these hydrogen peroxide foggers.
Yeah.
And they let it run for days.
Yeah, then it's fine.
Cycle it in days and days of it. And it, that's one of the things they've been doing. But you can't do that all the time with people in there,
No.
So,
yeah, it's an irritant, so you can't do that. Yeah.
What about if you put oleander in it?
Oh no, here we go.
I'm just wondering. I'm hearing great things about that. It's going to be the new hydroxychloroquine.
It is. It is the new one. It is the new one.
I heard if you lay your head on a pillow after the whole exposure, and you order it from some company online, I think it was called, I don't know, My Pillow or something.
Yeah, My Blanket.
Okay.
So, all right, we're closing out. We're going to our post show. John,
I've completely lost me, and so I don't even know anymore.
do we have any? Oh, well, we can gather them. I guess we can talk about them in the post show. But were there any questions from Facebook on the whatever? No. Okay, we're good to
We
go.
had people come in from Facebook into here tonight, so that was good.
Okay. Well, here we are. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. We had, it's kind of going back to the old school, everybody gets to participate model, which is a lot of fun tonight. I think we'll do that in the coming weeks some more. Anyway, have a great night, everyone. We will see you next week, and stick around for the post-show discussion.
Awesome. Thank you, John.